Miss Mayella, said Atticus in spite of himself, a 19-year-old girl like you must have friends. Who are your friends? The witness frowned as if puzzled. Friends? Yes, don't you have anyone near your age, or older or younger, or boys and girls, just ordinary friends? Mayella's hostility, which had subsided to grudging neutrality, flared again. You making fun of me again, Mr. Finch? Atticus let her question answer his. Do you love your father, Miss Mayella, was his next. Love him? What you mean? I mean, is he good to you? Is he easy to get along with? He does tolerable, except when... Except when? Mayella looked at her father, who was sitting up with his chair tipped against the railing. He sat up straight and waited for her to answer. Except when nothing, said Miss Mayella. I said he does tolerable. Mr. Yule leaned back again. Except when he's drinking? Asked Atticus so gently that Mayella nodded. Does he ever go after you? How you mean? When he's riled, has he ever beaten you? Mayella looked around, down at the court reporter, up at the judge. Answer the question, Miss Mayella, said Judge Taylor. My pa's never touched a hair on my head in my life, she declared firmly. He never touched me. Atticus's glasses had slipped a little, and he pushed them up on his nose. We've had a good visit, Miss Mayella, and now I guess we better get to the case. You say you asked Tom Robinson to come chop up, what was it? A chifforobe, an old dresser full of drawers on one side. Was Tom Robinson well known to you? What do you mean? I mean, did you know who he was? Where he lived? Mayella nodded. I knowed who he was. He passed the house every day. Was this the first time you asked him to come inside the fence? Mayella jumped slightly at the question. Atticus was making his slow pilgrimage to the windows. As he'd been doing, he would ask a question, then look out, waiting for an answer. He did not see her involuntarily jump, but it seemed to me that he knew she had moved. He turned around and raised his eyebrows. Was, he began again. Yes, it was. Did you ever ask him to come inside the fence before? She was prepared now. I did not. I certainly did not. One did's not enough, said Atticus serenely. You never asked him to do odd jobs for you before? I mighta, conceded Mayella. There was several niggers around. Can you remember any other occasions? No. All right, now to what happened. You said Tom Robinson was behind you in the room when you turned around, that right? Yes. You said he got you round the neck cussing and saying dirt. Is that right? That's right. Atticus's memory had suddenly become articulate. You say he caught me and choked me and took advantage of me. Is that right? That's what I said. Do you remember him beating you about the face? The witness hesitated. You seem sure enough that he choked you. All this time you were fighting back, remember? You kicked and hollered as loud as you could. Do you remember him beating you about the face? Mayella was silent. She seemed to be trying to get something clear to herself. I thought for a moment she was doing Mr. Hectatenmai's trick of pretending there was a person in front of us. She glanced at Mr. Gilmer. It's an easy question, Miss Mayella, so I'll try again. Do you remember him beating you about the face? Atticus's voice had lost its comfortableness. He was speaking in his arid, detached, professional voice. Do you remember him beating you about the face? No, I don't recollect if he hit me. I mean, yes, I do. He hit me. Was your last sentence your answer? Huh? Yes, he hit. I just don't remember. It all happened so quick. Judge Taylor looked sternly at Mayella. Don't you cry, young woman, he began. But Atticus said, let her cry if she wants to, Judge. We've got all the time in the world. Mayella sniffed wrathfully and looked at Atticus. I'll answer any question you got. Got me up here and mock me, will you? I'll answer any question you got. That's fine, said Atticus. There's only a few more. Miss Mayella, not to be tedious, you've testified that the defendant hit you, grabbed you around the neck, choked you, and took advantage of you. I want you to be sure you have the right man. Will you identify the man who raped you? I will. That's him right yonder. Atticus turned to the defendant. Tom, stand up. Let Miss Mayella have a good long look at you. Is this the man, Miss Mayella? Tom Robinson's powerful shoulders rippled under his thin shirt. He rose to his feet and stood with his right hand on the back of his chair. He looked oddly off balance, but it was not from the way he was standing. His left arm was fully 12 inches shorter than his right, and hung dead at his side. It ended in a small shriveled hand, and from as far away as the balcony, I could see that it was of no use to him. Scout, breathed Jem. Scout, look, Reverend, he's crippled. Reverend Sykes leaned across me and whispered to Jem. He got a cotton gin, cotton Mr. Dolphus Raymond's cotton gin when he was a boy. Liked to bled to death, tore all the muscles loose from his bones. Atticus said, Is this the man who raped you? It most certainly is. Atticus's next question was one word long. How? Mayella was raging. I don't know how he done it, but he done it. I said it all happened so fast Now let's consider this calmly, began Atticus, but Mr. Gilmer interrupted with an objection. He was not irrelevant or immaterial, but Atticus was browbeating the witness. Judge Taylor laughed outright. Oh, sit down, Horace. He's doing nothing of the sort. If anything, the witness is browbeating Atticus. Judge Taylor was the only person in the courtroom who laughed. Even the babies were still. And I suddenly wondered if they'd been smothered at their mother's breasts. Now, said Atticus, Miss Mayella, you've testified that the defendant choked and beat you. You didn't say that he sneaked up behind you and knocked you cold, but you turned around and there he was. Atticus's back was behind his table, and he emphasized his words by tapping his knuckles on it. Do you wish to reconsider any of your testimony? You want me to say something that didn't happen? No, ma'am. I want you to say something that did happen. Tell us once more, please. What happened? I told you what happened. You testified that you turned around and there he was. He choked you then? Yes. Then he released your throat and hit you. I said he did. He blacked your left eye with his right fist. I ducked it and it glanced. That's what it did. I ducked and it glanced off. Mayella had finally seen the light. You're becoming suddenly clear on this point. A while ago you couldn't remember too well, could you? I said he hit me. All right. He choked you, he hit you, then he raped you. That right? It most certainly is. You're a strong girl. What were you doing all this time, just standing there? I told you I hollered and kicked and fought. Atticus reached up and took off his glasses, turned his good right eye to the witness, and rained questions on her. Judge Taylor said one question at a time, Atticus. Give the witness a chance to answer. All right. Why didn't you run? I tried. Tried to? What kept you from it? He slung me down. That's what he did. He slung me down and got on top of me. You were screaming all this time? I certainly was. Then why didn't the other children hear you? Where were they? At the dump? Where were they? No answer. Why didn't your screams make them come running? The dump's closer than the woods, isn't it? No answer. Or didn't you scream until you saw your father in the window? You didn't think to scream until then, did you? No answer. Did you scream first at your father instead of at Tom Robinson? Was that it? No answer. Who beat you up? Tom Robinson or your father? No answer. What did your father see in the window? The crime of rape or the best defense to it? Why don't you tell the truth, child? Didn't Bob Ewell beat you up? When Atticus turned away from Mayella, he looked like his stomach hurt, but Mayella's face was a mixture of terror and fury. Atticus sat down wearily and polished his glasses with his handkerchief. Suddenly, Mayella became articulate. I got something to say, she said. Atticus raised his head. Do you want to tell us what happened? But she did not hear the compassion in his invitation. I got something to say and I ain't going to say no more. That nigger yonder took advantage of me, and if you fine, fancy gentlemen don't want to do nothing about it, then you're a bunch of yellow stinking cowards. Stinking cowards, a lot of you. Your fancy airs don't come to nothing. Your Mammon and your Miss Mayella and don't come to nothing, Mr. Finch. Then she burst into real tears. Her shoulders shook her angry sobs. She was as good as her word. She answered no more questions, even when Mr. Gilmer tried to get her back on track. I guess if she hadn't been so poor and ignorant, Judge Taylor would have put her under the jail for the contempt she'd shown everybody in the courtroom. Somehow Atticus had hit her hard in a way that was not clear to me, but it gave him no pleasure to do so. He sat with his head down, and I never saw anybody glare at anyone with the hatred Mayella showed when she left the stand and walked by Atticus's table. When Mr. Gilmer told Judge Taylor that the state rested, Judge Taylor said, It's time we all did. We'll take 10 minutes. Atticus and Mr. Gilmer met in front of the bench and whispered when they left the courtroom by a door behind the witness stand, which was the signal for all of us to stretch. I discovered that I'd been sitting on the edge of the long bench, and I was somewhat numb. Jem got up and yawned. Dill did likewise, and Reverend Sykes wiped his face on his hat. The temperature was an easy 90, he said. Mr. Braxton Underwood, who had been sitting quietly in the chair reserved for the press, soaked up testimony with his sponge of a brain, allowed his bitter eyes to rove over the colored balcony, and they met mine. He gave a snort and looked away. Jem, I said, Mr. Underwood's seen us. That's okay. He won't tell Atticus. He'll just put it in the social side of the Tribune. Jem turned back to Dill, explaining, I suppose, the finer points of the trial to him, but I wondered what they were. There had been no lengthy debates between Atticus and Mr. Gilmer on any points. Mr. Gilmer seemed to be prosecuting almost reluctantly. Witnesses had been led by the nose as asses are, with few objections. But Atticus had once told us that in Judge Taylor's court, any lawyer who was a strict constructionist on evidence usually wound up receiving strict instructions from the bench. He distilled this for me to mean that Judge Taylor might look lazy and operate in his sleep, but he was seldom reversed, and that the proof was of the pudding. Atticus said he was a good judge. Presently, Judge Taylor returned and climbed into his swivel chair. He took a cigar from his vest pocket and examined it thoughtfully. I punched Dill. Having passed the judge's inspection, the cigar suffered a vicious bite. We come down sometimes to watch him, I explained. It's going to take him the rest of the afternoon now. You watch. Unaware of public scrutiny from above, Judge Taylor disposed of the severed end by propelling it expertly to his lips and saying, Fluck. He hit his spittoon so squarely we could hear the slosh. Bet he was hell with a spitball, murmured Dill. As a rule, recess meant a general exodus, but today people weren't moving. Even the idlers, who had failed to shame younger men from their seats, had remained standing along the walls. I guess Mr. Heck Tate had reserved the county toilets for court officials. Atticus and Mr. Gilmer returned, and Judge Taylor looked at his watch. It's getting on to 4, he said, which was intriguing, as the courthouse clock must have struck the hour at least twice. I had not heard it or felt its vibrations. Shall we try to wind up this afternoon? Asked Judge Taylor. How about it, Atticus? I think we can, said Atticus. How many witnesses you got? 1. Well, call him.